We do want to take some time now to honor and remember civil rights icon, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died early this morning at the age of 84. A Baptist preacher known for delivering stirring speeches, Jackson was a trailblazer in American politics. A two-time presidential candidate credited with expanding the Democratic coalition and opening the door for future black politicians. He was born in 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina, and became a protege of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. In 1968, Jackson witnessed the assassination of Dr. King, standing alongside him on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel as shots rang out. He continued Dr. King's work, founding what then became the Rainbow Push Coalition, advocating for more opportunities for minorities. Jackson ran for president twice, first in 1984 and then again in 1988, delivering an electrifying speech at the convention that year.
When you see Jesse Jackson, when my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. And it wasn't born in you, and you can make it. Wherever you are tonight, you can make it. Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character. Character breeds faith. In the end, faith will not disappoint. You must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you are qualified, and you hold on and hold out. We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
His words inspiring many to run for office, including President Obama, who credits Reverend Jackson for paving the way for his own presidential run. A visibly emotional Reverend Jackson was in the crowd at Obama's victory rally in Grant Park in Chicago when Obama became America's first and only black president. Today, Americans across the political spectrum are remembering Jackson, including President Trump, who called him a, quote, good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts. Jackson's family saying in a statement his unwavering belief in justice, equality, and love uplifted millions. And we ask you to honor his memory by continuing the fight for the values he lived by. Joining me now is Marc Morial. He is the president and CEO of the National Urban League. Marc, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, you've known Reverend Jackson for a long time. You were on stage with him at the 2024 DNC. How will you be remembering him today?
I remember him as a transformative figure. He was a man who was a giant in stature. He was a man who was tireless in his efforts, a hard-working, committed person who followed his conviction. I'll also remember him as someone that bridged from civil rights into electoral politics. That 1984 candidacy was not taken seriously by many. And I think that 1984 candidacy represented Reverend Jackson's political skill in, on one hand, challenging the orthodoxy and the leadership of the Democratic Party, while articulating a vision in response to the Reaganism budget cuts of the 1980s. I think his 88 campaign paved the way for significant changes in the structure and in the nomination process within the Democratic Party for president. And I think his work over the years in registering and educating and motivating and mobilizing millions of voters helped to elect Doug Wilder and David Dinkins and Bill Clinton and, of course, Barack Obama. For me, who served in elected office in the 90s and the early 2000s and had a chance to serve as a Jackson delegate twice in 84 and 88, his candidacy gave a hope to a generation of us that it was through elected office that you can actually be a change agent for civil rights and economic opportunity. So he'll be remembered as a giant, I think the most important civil rights leader of the last 50 years.
I want to play something for you that Reverend Jackson said on Meet the Press back in 1983. Take a listen to this.
And let's face it,
Many of us have learned to live together, live apart for a long time. We've learned to survive without each other, but not to win without each other. And so now the Rainbow Coalition is in formation. It's becoming more functional. This campaign will appeal to those boats stuck at the bottom. And they are black, they're Hispanic, they're female, they're Asian, and many of them are now registering and coming together for the first time.
Talk to me a little bit more about this Rainbow Coalition, how he was reaching out to all minority groups, and how did that redefine the Democratic Party?
Well, I think the Democratic Party was having a crisis of identity. The modern Democratic Party of Franklin Roosevelt was a broad coalition and a broad tent. But it was a tent in the 30s and 40s that really did not significantly include African Americans at the table. Maybe as voters of that coalition. I think what Reverend Jackson's candidacy was about was bringing those who had been locked out and left out of leadership and participation in decision-making to the big table in Democratic politics. And his candidacy, I think, we should recall that people like Ron Brown and Alexis Herman and Donna Brazile and Mignon Moore and many, 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 many others cut their teeth in the, if you will, in the Jackson campaigns of '84 and indeed '88, and then went on to play significant roles in the Democratic Party even up until today. So we've got to recognize the profound impact. Jesse, with that clip you just showed a vision of what America could be like in the 21st century. He was ahead of his time.
And to that point, I don't know if you saw President Biden's statement today. He did praise Reverend Jackson and his efforts to work toward equality, but he also added that we've never fully lived up to that promise. Do you think that Reverend Jackson would agree with that?
Reverend Jackson would certainly agree with that. And he would be, as I know he was, stunned and disappointed by the backlash that's underway in America today. The attacks on diversity, the attacks on equal opportunity, the militarization of our cities, the cutbacks in funding for health and education and feeding programs. There is no doubt that created a great deal of distress. But as he counseled, we have to continue to work. We have to continue to work together. We have to continue to fight. We have to continue to fight together. And we must keep eternal hope alive.
It's pretty incredible when you think back about his career. It had all these different stages, and it seems as though many people may remember one stage. They may remember him as a political candidate. They may remember him for his work with civil rights after the fact. But it's really his activism roots where it all started. When he worked with Martin Luther King, he was, of course, with them at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. How do you think that specific moment impacted him? And then is that what drove his activism later on?
Well, what was so remarkable about that generation was grounded in a sense of morality that sprung from the promise of the Constitution, a sense of morality in the case of a Martin Luther King and a Jesse Jackson that sprung from the teachings of New Testament Christianity. And that moral compass of right versus wrong motivated their activism, whether it was economic opportunity, whether it was voting rights, whether it was political participation. It was motivated by this profound sense is that there is a difference between right and wrong when you look at the long and challenging history of America.
And I want to get your reaction to President Trump's statement on Jackson's death. He did praise him as a good man and a force of nature, but then he goes on to say, despite the fact that I'm falsely and consistently called a racist by the scoundrels and lunatics on the radical left, Democrats all, it was my pleasure to help Jesse along the way. He then goes on to slam President Obama. What do you make of President Trump's response to the legacy of Reverend Jackson?
This is one day when responding to President Trump is not the thing to do. Responding to President Trump is not the story today. President Trump is not the central focus today. And once again, he seeks to insert himself not with simple praise, but also with, if I would call it, gratuitous, unnecessary criticism. He's got Barack Obama on his brain. I don't know what that's about. Maybe he wants to grow up and be like Barack Obama one day.
I think we'll leave it right there, Marc Morial. Thank you so much for your insight and your perspective on Reverend Jackson. We appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.